Welcome back to Weekly Daily Wednesday, where we take a midweek break from gaming to cover everything else going on in the world of penguins. And unlike our Saturday show, it's slightly less cussy. I'm Ben Stone.
Just slightly. I am Pedro Mateos.
And I'm Matthew Commando.
All right, gentlemen, let's just get right into it. Why are we talking about
Sounds
Steam
good.
controllers?
So last week during Linux Gamecast Weekly, I made the claim that the Steam controller, or the Areola controller, or you want to call it, is probably the best thing to happen to input since SDL2. And it's a bold claim, I know, but I can safely say now that I've had the Mistress for a couple of days and I've been playing around with it a lot with several different genres, including some Dark Souls. Yeah. For me personally, the controller itself is a bit bulky. For someone with my particular configuration, thanks, Jordan.
Do you have Donald Trump hands?
No, it's just that my hands aren't exactly symmetrical.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. It still brings up my inability to touch the right trigger and the face buttons at the exact same time, but the exact same thing happened with the Shield controller, so not much difference there. What the Mistress does that the Shield controller didn't is that it inherently allows me to rebind any and all buttons on a per-game basis, including those games that normally wouldn't allow it. Hyper Light Drifter comes to mind. And if you happen to be a sociable person and have friends, you can take your Areolas to their place, and the moment you pair/plug in the controller, it'll pull your mappings for all of the games you've played so far, and you can just play it because it'll pull down everything from your account. And the degree to which you can map things, even to just the regular buttons, is unprecedented. The Mistress compares to other controllers like PC gaming compares to console gaming. I guess the same could be said for the Steam machines as a whole, wouldn't it? But yeah, very good job, Valve. Now you need to actually start marketing those Steam machines properly.
Okay, a couple of questions. I know you've really been playing with it, so what type of battery life are you getting on that critter?
A lot.
Right.
It still has the batteries that came with it in the box.
Okay.
And the battery indicator that shows up on Steam Big Picture mode still hasn't dipped. So a lot, I'm guessing.
That's cool. Does it recharge with USB, or do you have to change the batteries?
It's just the regular old AA batteries. If you want to recharge them, you're going to have to pull them out. If you plug it in through USB, it acts just as a regular wired controller.
How many times have you lost that dongle?
None. I plugged it into the Steam box and it's right there.
Okay, that's why. You haven't tried to take it to someone's house.
No, because again, I'm not a sociable person.
All right. Well, what do you think? I mean, currently here in Freedom Land, it's 49.99 wet stinky caches.
If you live in the US, you should totally buy one, because here in Europe, you can only buy it in physical stores in the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, and a couple other countries. And they actually sell for 55 euros. That's over $60 at that point. And if you want to order it from Steam, it's another 15 euros on top of that. So you're paying 70 euros for a controller, which is why, again, thank you very much to Mr. Matt L. for kicking over the wet stinky caches, and he got to call it the Mistress.
All right. Well, let's talk about something slightly less disturbing, Strider.
Yes, it's the Skype story of the week. While we're still waiting for unofficial updates. This one is ghetto-skype. So what it does, it lets you use the web version of Skype in a dedicated Electron app. So it's only for the chat part. You don't get the audio or video with this. But it's a little bit similar to what we talked about last week. Friends, which handled multiple protocols. So this one is only for Skype. I mean, I don't really see the interests with this because it's only for chats. You can get this working in Bitgen, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I've played around with it. When I say I played around with it, I tried to install it on Ubuntu 14.04, and it pretty much just noped. So your miles may vary. It is open source. Yeah. It is just for chat, but it is actually maintained, unlike several other projects for Skype. As I think Jordan is like, Node.js, yes, it's basically just a wrapped interface HTML. Oh, right, it's going to be brilliant, right?
It's the Electron framework. We've been getting a lot of those apps lately. It's you might remember we talked about Franz last week. It also does this. The guy was saying that, I tried other clients, but they didn't have the tray icon. Franz does. I guess he didn't come across that, but hey, this one's open source.
Hey Pedro, did you see some really neat servers on Craigslist the other day?
I did, and I guess we can safely assume they came from Red Hat. Because the fine folks at Red Hat have donated some servers to the GNOME project. They have 120 gigabytes of RAM, 48 cores, I'm guessing 48 threads, and an enterprise SSD, which that is probably the only thing I wouldn't mind getting my hands on. But I can only imagine how far the GNOME project will screw up GNOME 4 now that they have the hardware to do it even faster.
Hey man, look at it. It's going to be the future. GNOME 4 now with Qt.
Well, GNOME has been unofficially a Red Hat project for a while now. And there are a bunch of Red Hat people actively contributing to GNOME. So it's a little bit logical that they give some money and some hardware to support the projects.
Yeah, I mean, Red Hat's definitely been good about that. And, I was like, well, give it to Katie. I mean, I don't know. We don't know. We're not getting into that holy war, are we?
No. Otherwise, well, probably XFCE would win because right now I don't have a favorite. All right.
Well, let's talk about people who are our favorites.
Speaking of favorites...
we got this little thing on Patreon where everyone's kicking in. Everybody's at straight now. We got 7,837, making this show and Linux Gamecast Weekly also possible. We did just release a new thing last night, a new Left 4 Brad 2. That's where Jordan, myself, Pedro, and Empty attempt to play Left 4 Dead 2 poorly. Very entertaining, very fun to watch. Remember last week we were like, oh no, because we had a bunch of declined pledges, but hey, man, everyone basically got on that, and they're like, that's awesome. Absolutely, thank you a lot. Pedro's BFF, Ronald, he kicked in to help make sure this thing happened, and I thought it was very nice. One thing I do want to mention, though, there's a little bit of PSA, and I only noticed it last night when I was posting that Left 4 Brad, is now the Patreons is going to automatically check, if you're declined or anything like that, you're not going to receive updates, because some people will pledge, then they'll yank their pledge rights so they can get all the free stuff without paying anything. Mm-hmm. It's got that built in, so if you didn't get that notification of why, Left 4 Brad came out last night, you're like, where is that? Now you know. But do you got anything to say, Strider?
Merci, Renaud, pour permettre à l'émission de continuer.
Wow, you're worse at
You
French than
have
you are.
been away from France for a long, long time. Because
Anyway, all right, that's enough shameless promotion. Thanks, everyone, for making this happen. One more thing. Don't quote me on this, just erase this from your memory, should be, if not today, have an actual RSS feed for the audio out. So, might be tomorrow.
Totally cool.
Thinking about getting it up and published today. So, because the Pirate Bay, a little deceptive. It's a horrible place to go. It'll eat your children. It's Chrome and Firefox is kind of going, hey, check this out. Deceptive side ahead. It's not stopping you from going there, but it's the big red warning screen. Which really brings me to the conversation. Is that really genuinely going to deter the type of people that go to the Pirate Bay?
Some of them, yes, because there are some people who will look at that screen and, the virus fearful people. But it doesn't, they've actually only registered the .se URL as deceptive, because before the show started, we were going through the list of URLs that they have, and the other ones it doesn't block those.
Yeah,
So-
right, yeah.
So is this going to prevent you from downloading your Linux distributions on the Pirate Bay?
Probably not. And the Pirate Bay team said they are actively working on fixing the issue. And it's already fixed on Chrome, for me at least. Firefox, I still get the warning, but yeah, it's get fixed. I mean, not that it really matters anyway. So I don't think there's a lot of people using the Pirate Bay to this day. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely better places to download your Linux distributions, but...
Ah, yes, we finally get to feature one of Matt Hartley's stories on Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, and PulseAudio is a toilet full of roses, and he describes some of the usual complaints that people have when it comes to
That's my
PulseAudio.
Guns N' Roses cover band.
Some people complain that, like, oh, my USB headset doesn't play any sound. That's because the sound is routed through the PC sound card. And he describes a whole bunch of issues, and he then has some complaints regarding the article itself. But I specifically would not call PulseAudio a toilet full of roses. I would go with something like a seemingly perfectly functional sink that every now and again sprays drainage water all over your face, because someone plugged the intake and the drain through the same pipe. That pipe being ALSA.
yeah. The article all boils down to use purview control, which is something we've been saying like a lot all the time. This is the tool you want to use to configure your PulseAudio. If you got that, you're pretty much okay. You should be able to solve pretty much every issue.
Yeah, I mean, definitely PulseAudio is one of the things that will make your life 9,000% easier. Once we discovered that, like 2 or 3 years back, we're like, oh, that's how it works. And Pedro's trying to set me up, man. It's not that I really had a problem with the article, Brad. No. There was just one quote in there that I took a small issue with. I want to get this right. Historically, most issues I've seen are user error. And to that, I have to retort, bzzz, because historically, Pulse was a steaming pile of nope. And until recently, say the last 2 years, you were basically better off using anything else. Also, OSS, anything. But now it's definitely gotten itself to a workable state. I'm legendary for just running over Pulse with a bus. I loathed it for so many years. But I do want to say this. I mean, if you haven't played around with Pulse in, say, 2 years, give it another shot. I mean, it has definitely come a long way. But let's put our finger on the pulse.
Yeah, speaking of PulseAudio, there is a PulseAudio extension, if we can call it that, that allows you to stream all your sound to a Chromecast. So you have to install a PPA to get this running. And then once you've done this, you can stream all your audio on the Chromecast. The thing is, with all its problems, PulseAudio lets you do cool stuff like this. So that's a neat...
Yeah, I mean, definitely one thing Pedro and I were talking about. I was like, Pedro, don't get me wrong, man. This is neat, but it's kind of like a thought experiment. It's like, I can't do it.
A little bit, yeah, because, okay, sure. Basically, all you need to do is install the PPA, install PulseAudio DLNA, start PulseAudio DLNA, set the backend encoder to MP3 or AAC or whatever you want, and use FFmpeg to do it. And then from there, you have to install PAVU control, you already mentioned that. You should already have it installed. If you're using Linux in 2016, install PAVU control, save yourself the headache. And then you just pick whichever audio stream you want to forward to the Chromecast, and UPnP will do it automatically for you.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But if you're old and like yelling at clouds, like us here at Linux Weekly Daily Wednesday, drop that $4.99, get the Plex app for your Android device, and go bleep
Yep.
from your Plex server
That's
to your
the easiest way.
Chromecast. All right, because lazy. So, just for empty, BitKeeper is now open sourced. What's BitKeeper? I've never heard of it, Vin. All right, other Vin, I'll tell you. It's indirectly responsible for Git because it's what Herr Torvalds used to use to maintain.
We use Torvalds.
Yes. I pronounce Linux. Red Hat. Come on, somebody got that joke. Sound card config. Yeah, it's what he originally used for the kernel, and he's him. So he basically said, F this, and die in a fire, and came up with Git. But, this latest release, I mean, it has made the code open source, get this, under the terms of the Apache 2.0 license. All I can say, correct me if I'm right on this, this is definitely a bold move that's 11 years too late.
Yeah, considering how many forks Git has basically spawned, if you want different things or if you don't want to actually make your stuff open source and you just want to run it in a little intranet, as it were, just to keep the sauce under wraps, you can do it. There's GitLab. Regular Git has basically taken over the world. Why?
Yeah, I haven't seen a single project using BitKeeper.
Yeah.
In my life.
That's because real people use CVS, man.
Yeah, I've come across projects using CVS, but BitKeeper, never.
Never. Okay, well, I guess that is done with that story. And what's this? Oh, Natasha Bard, what's up, girl?
Yeah, Natasha Bard, one of the lead developers of the Unity 3D engine, had this to share yesterday on Twitter. It's like end of day one status.
Oh, what are we seeing for the
Unity
audio
3.
listeners?
It's the Unity. It's just a little ball going up a ramp, and the hack week that's currently happening at Unity 3D is just like end of day one status. X11 is out because they actually broke X11, and SDL is partially in. SDL in Unity 3D. What's going on?
Yeah, very good. Because a couple of weeks ago, they said they were rewriting the whole input thing in Unity, and most of us had expected they were writing everything from scratch. But it seems that they were smarter than that and used SDL as they were supposed to.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. What I would like to think is, because I don't know, we don't know, this is speculation sauce, correct us if we're wrong, that it did come across that, yeah, we're going to redo our own implementation of our input system. And I want to think there was the collective outcry of the community screaming, "Are you high?" And they said, wait, maybe we'll check out this SDL2 thing, because it turns out that SDL2 gives you some extra cool sauce, right? Like,
yes, it does, because the very next day, okay, bonus. Hack Week status, Unity 3D running on Wayland.
Don't care, Mirror, get out, man. I mean,
yeah, and it actually works with Mirror too, but if you go to the in the show notes, if you follow these Twitter links, you'll see that Ryan C. Gordon immediately came back and was like, "This is great news. Let me know if you need anything." It's just like, "Oh, we were having some issues with the Weston compositor. It works great in Wayland, but Weston wasn't playing all that well with it." So there you have it. Unity, they have a Linux native editor. They are working on.
Reply Ryan C. Gordon with his least favorite desktop and say you're having.
Awesome.
What were you saying, Strider?
Yeah, and I saw a tweet just from yesterday where she was complaining that Wayland is not working with the proprietary drivers. So that's the main issue.
Yeah, they got it running on Nuvo though, so that's good.
Yeah, on
It's
Nuvo,
working with
but
Mesa.
Nuvo is not like the best thing ever. So
But it's open source. What are you, man? Like one of those heathens that run binary blob drivers?
yeah, sadly, Adam, I'm
Yes.
one of those.
Well,
Bring politics into
let's talk
PC
numbers
usage.
and encryption.
Okay, so let's encrypt the free certificates authority. As I've just reached 3 million certificates delivered, and they were at 2 millions like 20 days ago. So that's a huge step up. So, and I'm using it a lot lately. I've been using it for everything. I'm not going to renew my paid certificates I have one for Lutris, for example. I'm not going to renew that. I'm going to go full Let's Encrypt because it does work really well. And it's come out of beta a couple of weeks ago. But still, there is still no Nginx support for Let's Encrypt. So that's a bit annoying, but even without Nginx support, I've managed to configure my reverse proxy with it, so that's cool.
You spell or you say Nginx weird, but I really shouldn't be pointing that out.
Because everyone in the world calls it Nginx. Yes, right. You're about to learn that in the shot reel. Give it about 16 seconds.
All right. So one of the things that I noticed is that they've issued over 3.3 million certificates. Jordan was asking if that counts for reissued certificates. I'm guessing so. All right. Okay, so Jordan just pointed it out. There it is. But they've only had 18.6K of those certificates revoked. And from my experience, at least, I have set up 5 SSL certificates up to this point, and 3 of which have been revoked for varying reasons, none of which were my fault.
Well, they only last 90 days. So you have to renew them every 90 days.
Right.
Well,
There's a couple of auto magic scripts that you can use with the Apaches, but how did you pronounce Nginx?
Nginx.
Nginx. All right, I love that. Almost a shame. But how are you automating that with your reverse proxy?
So right now it's not automated.
Okay.
So I still have to set up some cron tasks.
So
but I have
it's automated to the point when you wake up and you see that, oh, it's expired.
Yeah, I receive emails from Let's Encrypt. They send me emails saying your certificate is going to expire like in 2 weeks or something. So I go on my server, just run a command and it's done. I just have to set up with cron. It would be set up and all right.
All right, super sweet. Well, let's Hardcore Henry. That sounds family friendly, maybe.
Yeah. So
Well, there's a
Hardcore
lady looking
Henry,
out the window. How bad can it be?
It's a FPS movie. A full movie, like in first-person view, and it's using Blender for its special effects, and it looks really nice. And it shows that Blender has made like huge progress over the past years. When you see it used in the movie industry, sure, it's not like a big budget movie, but still, it's a professional movie, and it's gives like pretty good results. So yeah, I mean, it's gone to like this really awkward tool for 3D up to like this professional level 3D software that can be used.
It's definitely gotten better because I kind of spite noped on Blender. It's not Blender's fault because I went through the trouble. I even bought that book and learned how to use the old jacked up interface. And they're like, "Oh, do you got that down, Vin?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really got it down." Let's move it all around and change everything.
It was definitely a Microsoft Access level of UI friendliness. Thankfully, I've only had to use like twice in my life.
I mean,
so.
still, man. I mean, it's a good thing, and I mean, Blender is definitely priced to sell, as in free, because I know they like sliced Autodesk the Maya like down to $1,700 or something like that, or like $50 a month, or weird licensing. But hey, man, if you can get away with using Blender, definitely use it. I mean, it's really good to see that. What I'm kind of curious about, and I didn't see it in the article. Tell me if you did. How are they breaking down the rendering for this? Did you see that anywhere?
No, I didn't see that. But I guess with Blender, you can set up rendering farms like with all the big rendering software. But yeah, I didn't get into didn't see any details of how they did the setups.
They don't really go into all that much detail, but you can watch the video. There's they go through some of the little bits that they use, some of the hackery they use with the cameras to get everything looking natural. Because if you've seen Hardcore Henry, it's amazing that movie didn't make people anywhere near as motion sick as it should have.
Right on. Well, for some reason, yet again, our last story involves Apple. I didn't put it in the show notes. We're just going to call this the Rotten Apple segment because, well, we're Linux users, and it's kind of unfair to take a swipe at Windows at this point, considering Windows 10. You're like, oh, man, don't kick them when it's down. So let's poke Apple before we get out of here. Apple stole my music. No, seriously. Well, not really, Brad. Apple didn't really steal your music. I read through this, but then this is coming from blog.check our show notes, because I'm not even going to take a stab at that domain name. That'll be in the notes, it'll be in the Patreons and all that. What was going on? Two people had very similar issues. That one was a composer, amateur composer, and the iTunes match thing. He says, oh yeah, you match this. And it noped original things that it mismatched on his box and uploaded it. He's like, oh, and I don't have access to it anymore. And I was like, okay, well, that's the thing. Turns out, they show the screen. If it finds something and it gives you that option, it's like, hey, I don't really know what to do with this. Unless you cancel the operation, it's the equivalent of like 3 yes buttons is the option you get. And I'm not picking on Mac users, but this is your fault, Apple, because the type of people that are using iTunes on an Apple, you got to make that really simple for them. Send your hate mail to Vin at linuxgamecast.com. But they do need to fix this. I mean, normally that's never going to be an issue with anyone. They mismatch something that you had, and you're just going to go get another copy of it. But I mean, if it's original work and you don't have it backed up, I could see how this could be a problem. Pedro?
I don't know. I used iTunes for the 4 years that I had my iPhone 3G, and I swore the day that iPhone broke or I sold it to someone, I would never touch the blessed thing again. And so far, I haven't touched it in over 6 years now.
We need to talk to our resident Apple fanboy. So
no, the concept of iTunes have always horrified me because it does some really weird stuff. And even if you're using Linux and have an iPod or an iPhone, it's really tricky to get everything working correctly. And it can do weird stuff. I've seen, even Rhythmbox or Banshee, they did like deletes music on the local drives while syncing stuff. I mean, it's really weird, and I'm not putting my music anywhere near iTunes or iPods ever. I don't want to touch this.
All right, that seems logical. But before we get out of here, we do ask, I mean, if we say anything wrong, if you have some questions, thoughts, hints, allegations, or things better left unsaid, you could always leave us a note in the YouTube video. Give us a thumbs up. I just like saying that because it's so sketchy. Or you can leave us a comment on the Patreons. Or if you want to head up to the main site, linuxgamecast.com, click that contact button. Just in the subject, put, LWDW plus the title, and just so we know it's for this show, if you're going to do it that way. So, Pedro, what do we got this week?
Actually, just to remind some people that last week, Ven asked people to like and subscribe the video. He was being ironic, but in the first 5 minutes, we had like 2 downvotes. So let's not, okay? All right. Okay, so Predator 8-bit. Now I get it. You were talking about Windows last week, and when Ven mentioned Microsoft having the tendency of having one good release and then one bad release, I realized that's why they skipped 9. Because this way, they were able to have 2 bad releases in a row. Well, that's not exactly why that happened. You can also, Ven actually reminded me, there was Windows 8.1. But no, they didn't use Windows 9 for the simple fact that some of the software was actually checking for the Windows version to see if it was Windows 9X. And there is a lot of software that simply won't start if it detects that you're running Windows 9 something. Or it starts in Windows 98 compatibility mode or something along those lines. So Microsoft, instead of actively trying to fix that issue, no, there's just gotta call it Windows 10.
Yeah, I haven't used it a lot, but I don't see how Windows 10 is worse than Windows 7. I mean,
that's because you're not a 14-year-old male suburbanite kid on Reddit. It's cool to run Windows 7 and hate on the Windows 10. Listen, just get out of your system and hate on all the Windows and just run Linux. But what were you saying?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Well, we do.
But speaking of Linux, why? This comes from Lockdown and Ven. As a more seasoned Linux user, oh man, you couldn't have cut me more deeply. How come you hate yourself? Oh, well, I do hate myself plenty. To use Ubuntu, ? You've made mention before that Valve recommends Ubuntu, but isn't that more for the general public as Steam runtime is a thing, period? Or are you just slightly, yes, also yes. No, man, definitely the big thing for this is LTS support. So you're basically looking at either your Ubuntu or your SUSE or something like that. But this is the render box, and we don't test in production. This thing has to be on for definitely 2 days, full blast, full tilt, streaming, recording. Then we're going to be doing the rendering. And what I genuinely hate and what I want to see is this to change. But currently, right now, most game developers, and I'm saying 99%, are targeting 1404 LTS. So I want to have that when we're doing the review, because it's almost, like I said, almost 100% chance that's going to be the recommendation where they should actually, well, all right, I want to say they should be targeting SteamOS, but Valve needs to get rid of Valve Time and get rid of the beta on SteamOS and get that actually out and say, target this, guys. And if they're not targeting 1404, sadly enough, a lot of times they'll be doing like 1204 or something like that. But for me personally, and for everything else, there's Fedora. I'm a Fedora fanboy. I've been using Fedora since Core 1, and before that, it was Red Hat. And, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is just install Arch.
No, I've been running Ubuntu for the past 10 years, and and on purpose. I've tried a bunch of other distros, but Ubuntu is really the one I like the most, and I get my stuff done with it. And I used Unity as well on purpose. Yeah, I find it really great, and I have no problem with it. So it's just a matter of taste, I think.
I can't say that I like one distro over another, because then the Summer Glau effect might kick in, and I don't want to see any more distros that I actually like die. So,
yeah, the only thing that worries me a bit is the whole convergence thing with Ubuntu Touch, Unity 8, and Mirror. Depending on how bad this ends up to be, I might have to switch to KDE, but I'll still Ubuntu.
The Ubuntu is definitely that comic in where that kid's on the bike and he's got the stick and they're about to shove it through the spokes. They just haven't got to it. All right, last one. Tor, who wants to take this?
I'll take it. So Truggleswick got in touch with us because last week during the news story, about Tor users being targeted, this caught my eye and made me flip a table, as well as people who reject location tracking by apps on their smartphone. Concerning for me, as I reject all location tracking on my smartphone by default, as it isn't needed, but mainly to save. Mainly to save resources. Having looked back, probably the article actually says the FF says that Tor and VPN users, as well as people who reject location tracking by apps on their smartphone, could be targeted for remote access, seizure, or copying of data. Legitimate concern or sensationalistic journalism? I've already dumped my copy of Tales and got rid of all my brown friends, so I'm not a target. Now, do I have to allow location tracking for all my apps on my smartphone too? Yes.
And this is another thing we were talking about before the show. What I read is like the NSA will track you, and if you do these things, that just reads like a checklist of stuff I'm installing because you don't want me running it. I need to be running it. Strider, do you have any thoughts?
Like we said a couple of weeks ago, when you're trying to be secure, then you're making yourself less secure because you're becoming the target of all these government agencies and whatnot.
Well, I mean, ultimately, like in the real world, the two things I always have enabled is Privacy Badger and No Script Lite. You know, it's not as much of a fun Nazi as, No Script standard is. So you don't have to constantly change everything. And I'm going to hit you with the ad block if your page ever throws up one of those takeover pages.
Yep.
You do that, you're getting the ad block. What do you run, Pedro? What's your toolkit?
I run Privacy Badger too. I used to use ad block, but then the acceptable ads policy came out, and I don't exactly agree with that policy. I would gladly disable ad blocking for certain specific sites, but I don't want it outright ignoring some ads because it's just coming from Google. No. So I use uBlock Origin. And to what Strider was saying earlier is that by trying to make yourself lead a more private electronic life, you're actually pinning a big fat target on you. Yeah, but you have to have a certain compromise because...
What are you trying to hide, Pedro? I mean, if you don't have nothing to hide, don't worry about it.
Right. Because let's face it, we're all running Linux. We don't exactly need the NSA to make a cloud backup of our entire hard drives, SSDs, whatever. So yeah, be careful, but don't compromise your own security just because you don't want to target.
Yeah, I mean, you can still run these tools. You'll still be more secure than not running them, at least. You'll be targeted, yes, sure, but if your crypto is strong enough, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Do you hear that, NSA? Matthew just said, come at me, bro.
Yeah, the guy who was just defending you, yeah. He's running
probably targeted at this point.
All right. Hey, thanks, everyone, for showing up. Hope you had fun. We had fun doing this. We're about to nope out of here. We will be back, well, two of us anyway, Saturday for Linux Gamecast Weekly. That's going to be around 9:30 Eastern Time. But we will be back here next week. Normally around, about 3:30 when we normally start? Ish. So keep that in mind. I'm Vince Stone.
I am Pedro Mateos.
And I'm Matthew Commando.
See you.
Bye.